Good morning, online folks. Welcome, on-site folks. Man, is it so good to hear the voices back in the room. Some of you are still in my head from a year ago when we've been together hearing your voices, but we're so thankful that everybody's with us today. A couple of shout-outs. All the lovely ladies online and in the room. It's Women's Month. And I believe Monday is International Women's Day. So Rob Key said he will take all the women in the room out to coffee on Monday. Go to either Bigby North or Panera at DuPont, you will see Rob. So good luck with that, Rob. I do want to make a few introductions of some new folks that are joining our First Fridays team. With us today, he's in the back, as always, is Mr. Jared Wilson, is joining our First Fridays team. Thank you. We have Denise Mills, who's joining our First Fridays team. She's with us live. And Cassie Lamb is with us online. She will be joining our team as well. So we are so thankful for the folks who have joined us, and we're always looking for wonderful people to continue to be a part of our group. But now I have the great honor to introduce a good friend. She's been a part of the First Fridays audience for it's been more than 2 years. We're going to say 3.
Okay.
Because, of course, they called me Rain Man when it comes to First Fridays, because I know everybody who's ever spoke and everybody who's ever come to a First Friday. So Frances Brooks works for the Parkview Foundation. We have known her for 3 years, and the best thing I can say about Frances is she is a woman who truly cares about people. She is passionate about what she does, and she's passionate about the people that she has an opportunity to have an influence over today. So, Frances, I'm going to turn it over to you. Have a great morning.
Thank you, Jerry. Good morning. I can remember sitting where you're sitting. I came intentionally to hear a message Brian DeCook was giving because he was talking about conflict management. And, man, if there isn't ever a chance to really learn who you are and what's happening in the world, it's when you're in the middle of a hard time. And so I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning. I'm going to tell some of my story, but my goal is that when you leave today, you will find your ability to step forward and trust the voice, whether it's in your head, it's in your heart, or maybe right now it's just in your gut. But know that that is central to who you are and that God made you to be in the time you're in. So with that, we'll get started. So have you ever been lost? My husband and I drive. He's the passenger. We just made that deal. We've been married 23 years next week, and it works better that way. He'll tell you I say that a lot. He's just stopped trying. I mean, he's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I want to talk briefly about where I was 5 years ago, almost today. I was in a Target parking lot. Was the director of business development for a small nonprofit. If I were to share the name, most of you would be familiar. If you've done business development, you know what it's like in April and October. That's conference season. And I had been on the road for 2 weeks. And I get a phone call. My friend who called may actually be in the audience today. It was a mom. It was a Wednesday night, and my girls had gone to youth group. I knew that because it's Wednesday. That's what they did on Wednesday nights. They were in middle school, 11 and 13. I was at Target because I was in Traverse City, and I had one more day before a conference. I was going to pack up, drive to the next site. I started a conference for the following day. 2 conferences, 1 week, my second week on the road. This mom calls. Let's say, politely, she was hot. She wanted to know if my daughter, 13, had... No. I'm sorry, I don't. I've been gone for 2 weeks. Let's just say my daughter is incredibly creative, duct tape, a young boy, and middle school youth group. You can imagine. Not the story. I have the pictures. I didn't put them in here. What I want you to know is it's not about the road you take. It's not about the map you're on. It's about trusting the nudges you get as you go. And so we're going to start this morning by talking about authenticity. And above and beyond anything you take away, please note Psalms 139:14. Because that day, that's the message I hear. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Fearfully and wonderfully. In reverence. So if you know me, I am super not shy. I have friends sitting here in the front row who can verify day in and day out I'm as likely to do this as I am to look beautiful and speak kindly. It's all about who you are inside and out. And that is not by accident. So 5 years ago, there's a woman sitting up here in front that met this girl right after she had that call from the mom who was not happy about her son and the tape. And I was broken. And I was burned out. Thank you, Brenda Jank. I didn't know that word or that phrase at the time. You guys have heard Brenda. She spoke here in the past. Take heed of those cautions. Give yourself some rest. And in that, you mentioned reflection earlier. It's so important. Take the time to understand who you are and where you're headed. And if you don't know, it's okay to say, not today. I'm going to take a break. And I'm going to spend that time doing what will reconnect me to who and how I was made. When I don't do that well, this group up front will tell you I have this incredible group of people, and I'm going to encourage you to find them if you don't, my personal board of directors. And I'm totally borrowing most of these ideas from other speakers you've likely heard here at First Fridays. These are the people in your life that when it's going great, celebrate. And when it's going not, they lift you up. And when you get bad news, they're the ones you call. Even if you're a broken mess or you're high as a kite fun, these are the people you need to surround yourself with. So know who those 3 to 5 people are. And if you don't have one or know one, I understand Rob is giving coffee away on Monday. Okay. So for me, 5 years ago, after I got home from that trip and my husband and I had a real hard conversation about what's this going to look like, and I decided to leave that business development position, and I stepped into another job, quick. I have a family to provide for. It was the wrong choice. And so as we look at the concept of authenticity plus integrity and building trust, it comes down to what is that board of directors and what are you hearing and how are you building your brand? My friend Leslie Hill, again, a speaker from here, talks about your personal brand, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. But it's important for you to know what does that look like. And when you step into a space thinking it's the right one, that you're in the decision you've made is the right next one, and it's not, thankfully we have the opportunity to try again tomorrow. So that comes from my eternal optimism, but it also comes from the promise that as we build relationships, there's going to be someone there to help us. And so my challenge to you, as we talk about authenticity, is this quote from Stephen M.R. Covey. It boils down to 2 simple questions. Do I trust myself? Am I someone others can trust? And with regard to having trust in yourself, it often begins with the little things. So if the story I've told was fun, but you can't relate, that's okay. What is it that you need to trust yourself with today? And it's about today. Tomorrow is going to take care of itself. So that's my authenticity piece. From there, so now we get into 2016. I left that job. I started a new job. And I met this amazing group of people. I really wanted to start putting back into pieces in my life that I thought I lost. And I'm still working to figure out what those are. But I have a fine arts degree. Anyone else? Liberal arts? Anybody? Anybody? Okay. It allows you to just keep recreating yourself. And so I have found an amazing amount of ability in how I advocate for others. So here's a question. I want you to kind of think to yourself 2 possible options. Does advocacy start at home and I have to know me first? Or is advocacy for others? How I show up to serve others matters the most. So is it about how I present myself, or is it about how I'm giving back to others? For me, it vacillates back and forth. I ended up stepping into a volunteer opportunity with a group here in town. I'm going to just promote the heck out of them, called Art Link. If you are artist bent, it is an opportunity for people to step forward. And a friend of mine was very pregnant and was putting together what she considered a great opportunity for our community. And I will be honest, it has gone places I think she would never have imagined the vision could have gone. And that is because a group of us came together and put on a really fun event. But we also, through the passion that we have and the experiences we were building and the amazing ingenuity, again, of one of these people in the front row, continued to pursue their vision for our city. And so now many of you think of murals in downtown Fort Wayne as the thing to do. And there's a new one going up right, left, and center. I was part of that, just from a little teeny piece back 5 years ago. And so that year of failing and starting over and trying to figure out who I was came down to my passion and my ability not to persuade others, because I think, given the gift of gab, Jerry and I must share this as an innate skill, I was able to persuade myself to get up and start putting those pieces back into my life that have built my voice for who God made me to be. So then it was a matter of figuring out, who am I? How does this fit? What I see in this opportunity, how does my fit? And I think so often we've heard, again, Barry Schrock spoke heavily about the fear of missing out and strengths, and how do we take all those concepts and turn them into the opportunity for us in the time we're in. See, I don't believe in regrets. I think when you're standing in an opportunity, the Lord provides 2 amazing choices, maybe 3, maybe 6, I don't know. Maybe you're super blessed and you have 10 choices. I believe that when you're standing in that space, you choose the best opportunity you can imagine is going to deliver on what are your priorities at the time, vertical and horizontal. And so it comes down to, what role am I going to fill in this time? I think you can look back on that time and say, what if I had chosen a different way? But I'm not sure that we're supposed to regret that choice, because we made the best choice we could. Some of us can be impulsive. Again, I refer you to the daughter, the duct tape, and the middle school boy. But I think that still allows us to give the opportunity to move forward, knowing who we are, again, to the authenticity piece, and how are we advocating for ourselves and others. And I will tell you, among all the things that we are able to offer the world, it's the opportunity to serve others for me. The power of what's happened in downtown Fort Wayne with the Art This Way project and ArtLink's piece in that, and the individual, Alex Hall, sitting in the front row, who is just an amazing human. It's the power of collaboration, and she's going to kick me later for saying her name, but that's okay, because she would tell you, and I believe, that is in what we do together. It's how we accomplish the goals that we have, again, set with our heart, our mind, and our gut. So here's a thought. Do you guys remember, like, when we could wander around downtown and you could go in and get a coffee at Forteza? There's a gentleman that was often there before the pandemic named Kevin Chandler. And I had the opportunity to hear him speak at our church a little over a year ago. And this quote is from him. He says, "Advocacy is relational." And for me, that is so true. It comes down to, how are you using your voice to move what you are passionate about forward? And how does that serve the purpose that you feel in your life? So if you don't know Kevin, I would encourage you to reach out. He's online. You'll find an amazing story in his life. So then it comes down to activating all this. So maybe, okay, we've figured out kind of what's working in this season. We've figured out how to advocate and collaborate with others. Now it's a matter of identifying and attaching that to purpose. And I'll tell you guys, there's lots of days I don't want to. The pandemic, to the question earlier, what has the pandemic been for me? It's shown me how to make myself get up and move forward, even when I don't want to. Because those middle school age girls, 5 years later, are now women with jobs and college degrees and working on what's next. And my example speaks way louder than the words I'm using. So for whatever your motivation, I'm going to press on. Hebrews reminds us to press on. So now here comes the point that's just a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but ambition is a tough word. And for the women in the room, I struggled to put that up here. Because as women, we are often not encouraged to be ambitious. We're supposed to be kind and nurturing. I think you can do that in ambition. But I'm going to recall a day before the 5 years ago point where I was sitting in the middle of an interview. And the man that was sitting across the table from me, all due respect to his authority and his knowledge and the position he was trying to fill, his question was, is the job something you want, or do you just want to move forward in the company? Ladies, and maybe men too, I don't have your experience, gentlemen, but ladies, it's okay to say both. And I just want you to know that. It is okay to be ambitious and to go where you're uncomfortable. I have a friend who says, when your voice shakes and your stomach hurts, that's the time to step forward. And if you don't know if it's the right time, I'm going to refer you back to the beginning of my presentation. Ask those you trust. If you don't have someone that you know that you can trust, call me, find me on LinkedIn. I have plenty of time to have coffee. Well, I used to. The pandemic has changed that too. But I will make time. That's the point. Or Jerry, or Rob, or any of the other amazing people on the First Fridays team, because at the end, that's what it comes down to. I'm going to skip my next bullet for just a minute. A year ago, I wrote an article. It was in the journal, part of the About initiative, Advancing the Voices of Women. And I just want to pull that out today and remind us all that there is so much power in the word no. That gentleman who asked me that hard question, and I think he was doing that because he could, actually motivated me in ways that he probably doesn't even know to this day. He doesn't know who I am or where I am. He's gone on to do something else, as have I. But I think what's so important is his no to me made me figure out what is my vision and how am I going to move that forward. And so it made me keep trying things and learning from them. I was an Indiana Wesleyan grad student 5 years ago in that same time period when I was burned out. And kudos to you who just started your master's degree. It's going to push you in ways you don't even imagine. Mine has given me more confidence than I would have imagined and asked for. And I would go back to that opportunity in a minute, lifelong friends. But I want you to think about the power of no. When someone says or you say no, what is that opening you up for? And when you fail because you tried something and it didn't work, how is that no going to then turn into the next yes? So I want to encourage you to use your ambition and keep trying for the next thing God's put in your heart, your head, or your mind. Oh, I hate this bullet. My friend Brenda sitting up here is laughing only because this was her charge. Set some goals and put them down. I know you've heard this in this environment several times. What you write down and you measure is what you will move towards. Otherwise, it's just a dream. And it's great to have dreams, but until you put it on paper and put some legs to it, start to figure out how you're going to get there, it is something that it doesn't have there's not real purpose behind it. Be intentional. There are lots of workshops out there about goal setting. I avoided them for a very long time. So let me encourage you. One of our friends in the room, and I don't know your name, mentioned work-life balance. Who in here or online has work-life balance? Someone raised their hand. God bless you. Please, you should be up here speaking. In my life experience, it's a misnomer. There's always a trade-off. So I instead call it work-life alignment. Work-life alignment. I can't remember the writer of this concept, but I will share with you that I think you get to make the choice, right? A balance, I think of negatively sometimes, and that's when you take the weight off the scale and the whole thing goes bloop. That's where I was. 5 years ago, standing in the Traverse City parking lot, 5 hours from home, my daughter and husband. with the tape. I had no idea what was happening at home because I was so focused on what was happening at work. It's an opportunity to step in and change what you're moving forward on. And so think of it as work-life alignment. What are you trading off in order to move on to the next thing? So we had an opportunity to do this, and we're going to take a couple minutes right now. And if you don't have a piece of paper, maybe your cell phone has an app, you can write notes in it, or maybe you just want to think about it. But I want to challenge you to think about what is your personal vision statement. And it's only through a lot of grappling that I've come up with this, which I will explain. My husband says it doesn't make sense. That's okay. It's not his life statement. It's mine. We agree on some things. Some things we agree to disagree. But I want to ask you, what do you have as your vision statement? Who are you reading? What concepts do you need to learn more about? What have maybe I said that's triggered something for you, good or bad? What failure can you not move past? Allow that to be a mere bump in the road, an opportunity to take the next step forward or step up. I want to give you, let's say, can we do a timer, Jerry? Maybe a minute or so. I don't want to be too overly long, but I really do think that this is an opportunity for us to reflect on what can I set for myself as a personal life statement, and then we'll come back to me maybe giving some structure. I know silence can be intimidating, so I don't want to leave you too long here. If you didn't have a chance to finish some thoughts, I'd encourage you to return to this later. So we're going to look at this silly graphic I made. I'll be honest, mine started with 3 words, and in some reflection last year, I added a 4th. So personally, mine was learn, know, and grow. So as we think back to what I've shared 5 years ago, so in 1 year, I left a job burned out. I started a new job with a high needs, emotionally laden nonprofit. Day 2, I knew it was the wrong choice. 5 months later, I left with no job, thinking I was going to have 3 job offers. Silver medalist 3 times over that Christmas. Unemployed, and I launched my own entrepreneurial business for 3 months. My claim to fame, I watched every episode of Mad Men in 3 months. Let's talk. If you've done it, it's a good show. It's got some questionable things. I get it. In that same time period, though, I have a vision board that sits in my bathroom that I look at every day. And if you've not done a vision board kind of experience, there's some great leaders in our community that will come in, help with you independently. If you need a name, I'd be happy to connect you to her, or several others. But taking the time to think intentionally about what does this say to me. I hadn't yet written this at that time. But I look at the messages that are on that. It's a small 12 by 12 painting. And every day, it's a mix of what shows up. Sometimes it's the images. Sometimes it's the words. Some of them are silly phrases that became really popular, like better together. It was the beginning of the better together movement, if you guys are involved in an organization that says that. How do I put that in place today? How do I trust the prompting I'm hearing from others in my group of influence or myself to move it forward? So for me, learn and know are all about being authentic. What am I learning? How am I challenging myself? And when I know it, when I become more confident, what am I doing with it? That growth, to me, is an outward expression. That's how I'm advocating for others. I love the interaction of people. The last year at points has been really dark for me, and I'm not going to apologize for my emotion. You can hear it. I can feel it. The anxiety and depression in our community is something we have to address. And if there's one thing that I think the pandemic has done an amazing job of, it is making that part of our conversation. It's lowering the shame culture that for too long has had too much of a handhold in our world. And then a year ago, as I was evaluating, how does that look? What am I doing with it? What am I doing with this knowledge and this confidence I put together? And for me, that's how am I serving others? That's how am I serving the Lord? What am I doing that is making our corner of the world a better place? Some projects are minuscule. They last for minutes. One of those relationships that was in that real brief job I had, I reached out and I renewed that relationship. And that woman and I have a great relationship now. But that's intentional. It doesn't just happen by chance. And that comes to trusting your voice. Knowing what you need, knowing what you're supposed to do, and trusting to move forward. And then it starts over. Or it's concurrent. For me, oh my gosh, if you know me outside of this one opportunity, I am 1,000,000 miles a minute. I don't sit still well. That minute of asking you guys to write something about killed me. Silence is dreadful. But it's also really important as we look ahead. What are we coming out of and where are we going? And I'm just going to challenge you to know that for yourself. One of my favorite authors, Simon Sinek, known for asking the question why. In the book Leaders Eat Last, he says this: if your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, to become more, you are a leader. And so I want to thank my personal board of directors who are in this room and online. Thank you for stepping forward. Thank you for kicking my butt. Thank you for drinking coffee with me. These relationships are what matters in this life. And I just really appreciate the time. Jerry, thank you for what you and Jim have put together here. You guys, use your voice. Be authentic to who you are. Figure out who you're supposed to advocate for. And do it. Activate it. Any questions?
Questions for Francis? And then we're gonna toggle that best we can with online and in room. So who has a question for Francis?
This is scary. Super scary.
Thank you. Well done, Francis.
Thank you.
Really well done. I love the fact that you brought up the mental health piece during the pandemic. You know, that awareness that this year or this past year has brought conversations that may not have taken place. I mean, I think that anytime we talk about it, it normalizes it for someone else. So I just appreciate you working, having that in the presentation. And my hope is that when things start opening up, I don't think normal is going to be a thing anymore, but that we continue talking about our mental health and making it a priority.
Thanks, Brenda. Jerry, do you need me to repeat that?
Yes.
All right, so for those of you online, Brenda Gerber-Vincent just encouraged us all that as the pandemic has pursued and gone on, her hope would be that we continue to have the conversation when we return to normal. I think, did I quote you there?
Actually isn't going to be a thing.
Yeah, so that we'll continue to have these conversations about mental health. And advocating for mental health is important to me. It's a factor in probably many of our lives. And Brenda and I share family members who have been diagnosed with challenging situations, and how do we use that as an opportunity to overcome the challenges. So thank you, Brenda.
We have an online question from Clarissa asking, what are you reading now?
Oh, of course Clarissa would ask what I'm reading. That girl's books are like as tall as her. So I used a quote from Stephen M.R. Covey, as opposed to Stephen Covey, who's author of a book called The Speed of Trust. And I'm still digging into it. But I think trust is imperative as we not only learn to trust ourselves, but learn to trust others as we build out team environments. And I think we overlook it sometimes in creating an action plan and a to-do list. I think those horizontal relationships are really important. So The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. Covey is the one I'm working through right now.
All right, we're going to jump to another online question as the folks here prepare their next question. Stephen Gerber from Grace College asks, have you presented this to your team, this presentation, to your church or to others?
So I would tell you I'm 100% authentically Francis, and I like to think I live this. But in terms of actually speaking it in this way, no, this is the first time. The only other opportunity I have spoken, this is a new skill set for me, is at Soup, and I'm just going to give them an outright promotion. If you are a small entrepreneurial business or nonprofit looking to build brand awareness or let others know what you're doing, consider applying for Fort Wayne Soup. I shared the Run Hard, Rest Well story at that about a year and a half ago.
On site, who has a question? Next question.
I'll throw one at you. So you said you struggled with goal setting. What is a couple of your goals for 2021?
So Jared, thank you so much for asking that. Jared asked me what I shared I struggle with goal setting. What are some of my goals for 2021? So let me think. One of them is to lose the expanded waistline that the pandemic has brought on for me. So that's a very personal goal. I think in the challenge I hope I offered you, one of the goals I've written down is to figure out what are the intermediate steps to one of my professional goals. And I'm a fundraiser by trade. That's a person who develops relationships. So if you do business development, sales, fundraising, there's a lot of continuity in that. I have my master's degree. I would love to be an adjunct professor for one specific university in the future. And so I'm putting into place the smaller steps that I need to take to get to that. So, yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, Denise.
When you're talking about your authenticity and self-awareness, this is something that I'm working on. Do you schedule a specific time on a weekly basis, whether it's during your workday or on your weekend, to, I love this, to review your goals, to look at your progress, to maybe recap what worked, what didn't, what do I keep doing, those types of things. And I just ask because that's one thing that I'm trying to do for at least 2 hours every single week.
Wow.
Sometimes I get it done Friday evening, sometimes it's Saturday, Sunday, whatever, but it's like I feel like Monday I'm all set and I'm ready to go if I was able to accomplish that prior to. Do you do something like that, or how do you get there?
Thank you. So for the online audience, Denise has asked if I have any sort of routine to setting a purpose for the week. Did I capture it?
And review with,
Yeah, reviewing my goals, that sort of thing. So on my best days, I get up. You read a lot about morning routines. I'm bad at mornings. I was up today at 5, just so you know. But that's an unusual thing. I will tell you that my goal is 20 minutes a day. I use an app called Calm. If you're not familiar, please see me after. I'd be happy. There's lots of them. So a meditation and then a devotion. If you follow me on Instagram or what's the other one? Facebook. I should know that. Duh. I try to post these for myself. If other people benefit, that's great. But I try to choose one word per day. So We are human beings, not human doings. And I think the way we nurture our mind is how we then work that out in action. So I'm working on developing a written, reflect on it every week, but it's more of a daily piece for me. And the days I do it, the meditation and my devotion, and eat something before I leave, is a better day. The days I don't, well, thank the Lord I have the Lord.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Francis, we have a question from online from Bridget. What drives and inspires you to do what you do?
That's a great question, Bridget. Thank you. I have 2 girls at home. And I kind of glossed over the Target story. Some of you here have heard it before. But the example I set for them, and then just totally bringing glory to our Lord. I think people are always watching. And so how we step into those opportunities that we have in front of us, good, bad, or otherwise, it's important for us to showcase that the big goals people have in life, mine is just to raise 2 amazing children who are able to give back to the world.
We have a question from Molly online. It says, it seems like you've gone through a lot of changes over the last few years. What are you most grateful for?
True. That is a great question. And I have the challenge of some of my friends to focus on gratitude. I think it's a great reminder. I am absolutely most grateful for the people around me who've pushed me to do more than I would ever have imagined, to set goals that make me uncomfortable, and then, honestly, to laugh. Like, we just can sit down and have the best time. And so, for me, it's about the people and what are we able to accomplish together. And that I'm grateful for the authentic relationships I have with a group of people. I have a small group from my church. I have a group in my business environment, and then just great friends that we just get to live life together, and that we live here and have the option to make those choices every day, because we know for far too many the freedoms we enjoy are not available to them.
Other questions from the room? Yes, sir.
Thank you. It was excellent. I love the part about your board of directors. What does that cadence look like when is it as needed, you're reaching out, or is it, hey, weekly we're going to check in with you? What does that look like? Because I love that. I love that concept.
Oh, yeah. So not original to me. You can find it LinkedIn, Google, personal board of directors. You'll find tons of information. It depends on the relationship. So I have 2 or 3 people that I brunch with. We schedule, used to be every month, we'd have one Saturday that pretty much the whole morning was a big X because we would all just come together. I have others that it's a text communication. It could be an encouragement. It could be, right now we communicate a lot in gifts. Is anyone else doing this? Like, yay, I finally figured out how to do that.
I don't think your audience knows the question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Online, he asked more about how do I source a board of directors and what does my cadence with that look like. Thank you for the reminder. It's unique to the relationship. I rarely are all those people in the same room. At the end of the day, it comes down to my husband and I just really sinking our teeth into what's happening, because that accountability and that commitment have to be first for us. And I would tell you that group has changed over time. As I've moved through professional opportunities, they say some are friends for a season, some are friends for life. I also am a strange person in that I drag people with me. So I really, I would encourage you, if there's just a couple people, whether it's personal or professional, you guys will figure it out. I think it comes down to that.
Question from Jan, one of our First Fridays board members. It says, you've talked about a vision board. What is an idea you had on your vision board that you are still working toward, or has it become a reality today?
Yeah, great question, Jan. So I went kind of bigger picture on my board. A vision board, are you guys familiar with this concept? I threw it into my art background. It turned into kind of a collage. It's a lot of more conceptual than I'm going to finish my master's degree or I'm going to get X number of next job. And so I use it more for a personal accountability than necessarily to set something I can check off. Something that I see and it reminds me that I'm not afraid to be ambitious as a woman and that my creativity is part of how I'm perfectly made in the Lord's eyes. And it has some crusty paint on there that reminds me I'm supposed to actually get a canvas out one of these days and put a paintbrush to it, which I struggle to actually do. I have that idea, I just don't trust myself sometimes to put it out there. So I think it may be a twist on the original concept, but it's definitely accountability.
All right, we're going to have one more question online, and then we'll take the last question from the room. Mitch asks, what do you think your superpower is that is uniquely yours?
So I have a friend in the front row who is laughing right now. She would tell you, and I have to agree, it is the power of connection. It is the fact that I met Alex volunteering for a little project 5 years ago. Turns out we grew up on the same lake, and we have this huge passion for putting ideas into the world that challenge people. And gosh dang, she's really smart. And we get to knock each other around sometimes. So my superpower is that Alex is stuck with me forever, as are Amy in the back room, who we've only ever known each other. I was excited to see, you guys have got to see her hair. I collect people, and I love it. So if that's Mitch Stein, peace out, brother. We got work to do.
Very good. I hope you have a big closet if you're collecting people.
I do. I have a new big closet.
Last question from the room. I'm sorry, it's before 9 o'clock. The purple-haired woman in the back.
So you talk a lot about self-awareness. For somebody who is looking to do more of that, are there any tools or different exercises that you would recommend?
Yeah, question Amy asked if there's any tools I would recommend for garnering better self-awareness. Amy, my first suggestion is just to buy stocking Kleenex, if you're like me. And also to have really broad shoulders, because self-awareness comes with a whole lot of work. The tools are all around the mindset of emotional intelligence, and there's a number of authors out there. Daniel Goleman is one of the prominent writers. I would tell you to tackle one thing at a time. So I started with self-awareness, and I think that's, for me, was base level. I've added active listening. I think the pandemic and what I'm doing in the pandemic right now has really taught me how to be a better listener. Rob personally shared 2 ears, 1 mouth. Mm-hmm. It's a good accountability. So emotional intelligence in general is a concept, and again, what is your favorite learning resource? LinkedIn, the library, someone else who knows that. But I would suggest reading Daniel Goleman, the Harvard. I don't know the whole school, but Harvard has got a whole school dedicated to learning about it. So, thank you for asking. Yeah?
Well, I've got to get up here beside the wonderful lady today.
Thanks, Sherry.
Frances, thank you so much for sharing. So much to take away. I, too, have a personal board, and several of the men are in the room with me. I don't call them my board. I call them my bros. I have a bromance with about 5 or 6 guys in the community, and they hold me accountable. But they're praying for me. They're there for me. I have one guy who's in this room who won't leave me alone. He's constantly texting me and hugging me, and
He does that to a bunch of people.
yeah, and he's the one who's gonna take all the women out to coffee.
He likes emojis too.
Yes, he does like emojis and sparkles and glitter. So get to know Rob Key if you have never met Rob today.
Good guy.
But Francis, thank you so much. Next month we'll have Anthony Giuliano. Great guy. Just if you've seen his content on LinkedIn or you've seen him in the community, he will be sharing with us. We will be back here in the same location and online. So please continue to continue to come join us. We will round out our season this year with two wonderful ladies, Karen Dowling from Indiana Wesleyan University, and then Brenda Gerber-Vincent. So with Brenda's talk, I think we're going to have a bigger room because everybody in the community will want to come out and hear Brenda as well. So again, thank you for coming today. Thank you so much. Meet somebody new and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.